Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to the respective parts of the world from where each and every one of you are joining on this exciting CENTALK series. Before proceeding ahead, did you know that the brain refuses to take a vacation? You know why? Because it is always scared of losing its train of thought. And that's exactly why we are here today, to dive deep into how the brain learns and what it means for our classrooms. And on behalf of CENTA, while welcoming each of you in the audience for our webinar series, I would also like to welcome, and it's an honor for me to welcome Dr. Deepa Balasubramaniam, who is our facilitator for the learning brain, the implications for the classroom. And this indeed promises to be an insightful journey on how we can better understand and support student learning. Welcome, Dr. Deepa, and introducing Deepa ma'am. She has over 25 years of experience in both leadership roles in both private as well as social sectors within education, specializing in K-12 mathematics. She has directed numerous curriculum design, content development, and teacher professional development across India, South Africa, Singapore, and the US, aligning with the progressive pedagogy global standards. She has also led a large scale STEM program, various international collaborations, including those with MITs, and has also presented national and international conferences on various topics. Early in her career, she worked as a software engineer, applying mathematical and computational thinking. Now she is an independent consultant, and her research focuses on integrating art into math education and social emotional learning. That's really wonderful to know that, ma'am. I am also an art integration enthusiast. So, welcome once again, Deepa, ma'am, and it's all over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. And I would also like to welcome all of you for this talk today. And I am really looking forward to engaging with all of you over the next 1 hour. And I just wanted to give you a quick overview on why and how I came to, select this topic. The human brain has always fascinated me. Actually, I was always intrigued by it because it is such a complex organ and it is responsible for so much of what we do, and we just take it for granted. And especially for us educators, the brain being the primary organ of learning, it becomes extremely important. I feel that as neuroscientists and educational neuroscientists share their findings, their research, and whatever advice they have, it is very important that we understand, be aware of it, and see how it actually applies to our own work. And educational neuroscience is a relatively new field, I would say, where neuroscientists, psychologists, and educators, people in the education field, are all collaborating so that the work is benefiting all the fields and they are not like working in silos in their own respective domains. So it is a kind of a cross curricular field. And many a time, I mean, we are all all of you are experienced educators. You have tried many methodologies in the classroom, and from your experience, some pedagogies do work. But when that is corroborated by science, that makes our learning much stronger. And in many other ways, we will find opportunities to tweak or adapt or try even new methodologies. So we'll start today with a quick poll. It's kind of an interactivity, basically to get our minds involved into this topic. It's just like an icebreaker warm up so that it lays the foundations for the discussion going forward for the next 1 hour. So I will request Jay to launch the poll. And Indira, you can please tell me what the results of the poll are. Once that is done, we will then continue with the
Sure.
webinar.
Sure. So the first question is up. Everyone, please poll for this or vote. We have got already 1 or 2 votes. The human brain does not develop further or change after the teen years. True or false? So, yes. And the poll, 65% of them say false, 34% say true.
Okay. The answer is actually false. And we will be actually, whatever, there are about 3 or 4 statements for which you just have to pick true or false. We will be uncovering the why, what, how of these over the course of the next 1 hour, which makes for very interesting, knowledge. So I will give only the answers now, and then we will discuss it over the next 1 hour.
Right. And here is the next one. Our brains work less efficiently when we multitask. We already got 134 votes, and votes are still coming in. And yes, 57% says false, 42% say true.
The answer is true. The brain does work less efficiently when we multitask. You can go on to the
Okay.
next one.
That's an interesting insight for me. The next one. When we
There
sleep,
is a
the
cognitive
brain.
overload on the brain, so that's why actually, yeah.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So here is the next one. We already have 80 votes in that. When we sleep, the brain is inactive with regard to learning. And now we have crossed 130. Yes, come on. 145, 150 votes. Yes. Okay, 51% say false, 48% say true. And we still have
Okay, the
people
answer
putting
is
in the
false.
chat. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
the
Go
answer
ahead,
is
please.
false, and the brain is actually quite active even when we are sleeping with regard to learning itself, and we will be talking about that.
Okay. All right. So the next one, we already have 30 votes in that. Cognitive ability is solely genetic. We have crossed 130 votes, and we crossed 1.5 century. We have made it. I'm hoping to make 2 centuries.
This is actually very intuitive. I mean, I'm sure they would be able to get the answer
Yeah.
correctly.
And we still have answers coming in the chat box also after the votes have closed down.
Okay. That's
Yay,
wonderful
we made
because
two centuries.
the whole point of this is to get us all engaged in this
Yes.
topic. So I'm really
Okay.
happy
And
that they are also happy.
69% say false for this answer, and 30% say true.
The answer is false.
Right.
Okay, so that was great. Thank you so much for interacting, and I hope it has been warm up for what we're going to now start discussing. So, how does the brain learn? Whenever you're learning anything new, say driving, or say some art form, piano or dance, or even when the students are learning, say, math and science or any subjects in the classroom, what is constantly happening is that the brain is forming connections between neurons in the brain. So, neurons are nerve cells, and we have billions of neurons in our brain. Can you imagine that? And the neurons are connecting with each other, and these connections help the neurons to communicate with each other, and the connections happen through electrochemical signals. So here you can see the diagram of two such neurons where my mouse is now pointing. Of course, I've color coded it only to give a distinction, but you can imagine many such neurons of this kind. There is a small gap between the neurons, and it is across this gap that the connections are established. So, one part of the neuron, where I'm pointing to now, the dendrites, receive the signals, and the other part of the neuron sends the signals. And when we're learning anything new, a subset of these, neurons which are associated with that particular learning activity will start firing together, because these electrochemical signals are being used. They'll start firing together, and when they start firing together, they start wiring together. So you will always hear this phrase, neurons that fire together wire together. And the more they fire together, the more it is easier for them to communicate with each other, because these connections become stronger. So let us now look at some analogies, so that we actually get a mental picture for what is happening in the brain. Imagine a field, okay, a muddy field, which has a lot of vegetation on it, a lot of grass, and you want to go from one point of the field to the other across the field. So the first time when you walk across, you will see just your footsteps on the mud. And then, supposing you keep walking back and forth, slowly that small tentative trail becomes a firm trail. If more people say walk on the same trail, it starts to become a firmer path, and sooner also, right? If more people walk on it. Now, supposing for some time the path is not used at all, nobody walks on it at all, there is every possibility that grass or some vegetation will start growing back on it, and that path, gets covered again. Let's move now from here to a social setting, where we can actually talk about connections itself. So when we are in school, we make a lot of friends. And when we grow up, a lot of us go to different places, we, for work or for some higher studies. Now, if you keep in touch with your friends, if the connections are kept alive, then at any point in time, if you want to communicate with your friend, the connection is available. And if you keep in touch, the connections also become stronger. That communication is possible. If, however, and we've all experienced this after many years, if you have not kept in touch, those connections are not nurtured, then after many years it is not available, and we will not be able to even communicate. We don't know where our friends are at all. So now let us, given these analogies, let us now map to what is happening in the brain. So when any learning activity is happening, a subset of neurons will start firing, and as they fire, as we just discussed, they start wiring together. The more that activity is practiced, the neurons will fire again, and that wiring becomes stronger and stronger. But if at any time, or for some time, I would say, we do not practice that learning skill, or that piece of knowledge is not exercised, there is every possibility that connection starts becoming weaker, and at some point the brain may even decide that this is not required anymore, and throw it away. So this ability of the brain to adapt, change in response to stimuli, experiences, learning, etc., is called neuroplasticity. And some people refer to it as brain plasticity also. And plasticity here is used in the context of malleability, adaptability, changeability. This ability is there throughout one's lifetime. That is the important point to note. So, of course, neuroplasticity is more enhanced in the childhood days, in the growing up phase. Definitely, it is more enhanced. It is stronger at that time. But even in adulthood and even in later years of life, this neuroplasticity is definitely available. In fact, you will notice that older people, even when they are in their 60s or 70s, are very often told to learn something new, learn a new language, learn some new skill, and that is because this neuroplasticity is exercised for and keeps the brain active and very healthy. And to understand why neuroplasticity would definitely be enhanced in the younger stages, younger ages, one has to just look at the child growing up, right? When a child is young, there are so many new experiences, so much new knowledge that the child is exposed to. And we know that till the 10th grade, they learn so many different subjects. Then after that, they start narrowing down. They choose their stream. And when they go to college, they start specializing even more. So the neuroplasticity in adulthood would tend to take the nature of strengthening existing connections, whereas in the earlier years of life, there would be a lot of new connections also getting built up. However, even in adulthood and even later on in life, the ability to even create new connections as a response to new learning is always available. So the brain is constantly building, reorganizing, and pruning connections between the neurons. And today, because of MRI, medical imaging technology, this neuroplasticity of the brain is can actually be followed and does get followed, does get researched by scientists. And there are some interesting studies. There are two of them that I wanted to share with you all. One study was done on Einstein's brain. Albert Einstein, the physicist, one of the greatest minds that we have known in our lifetime. Apparently, when he passed away, photographs were taken of his brain. And recently, a few years ago, there was a study done using that. Other studies have also been done, but in this one, what they found was that the region of the brain connecting the two hemispheres of the brain in the photographs of his brain, they found that that part was showing enhanced growth, and thereby suggesting that there were denser neuronal connections there. And when they do these studies, they very often they compare it with some control group. So even here they had a control group, and in comparison to the control group, they were noticing this. Another very interesting study was done on London cab drivers many years ago, and I presume it was done before Google Maps and a technology like that was being used. So these London cab drivers had to learn how to navigate the streets of London, and somebody's told me that London has very chaotic streets. I'm not sure of that, but anyway, they go through some training. And this study, what it did was it found it was studying the brain of these London cab drivers, and they found that the part of the brain that is associated with spatial navigation, that part of the brain, they found that in these London cab drivers was showing enhanced growth. Again, in comparison to the control group, but even more interesting, it was showing enhanced growth across the years of experience. So first year of experience of the cab driver as compared to the fourth or fifth year of experience, even there they were seeing this kind of growth. So again, these are all studies that are corroborating the neuroplasticity property of the brain, which is available for us. And that is why the brain is developing and changing based on experiences all our life, actually. Okay, memory is something that is very important for all of learning. We cannot do anything without memory, actually. And it refers to information and knowledge retention over time, the ability to retrieve it. We have to be able to, bring it back into our awareness. And memory involves the reactivation of specific sets of neurons. So, as I said, some subset of neurons will be responsible or will be associated with some learning task. The memory process will involve the reactivation of these. And I actually, the imagery I get in my mind when I read about this is like a big musical orchestra on the stage. There are different sets of musicians who play at different times during the performance, and then they will receive back, and then another set of musicians on the stage will play. So they are coming in and out in the performance. In the same manner, I visualize the brain simmering with activity, with different sets of neurons activating, deactivating, and the strength of connections between the neurons, new connections, and the removing of the old ones, that is also extremely critical for memory. So this removing of old ones, the pruning that we spoke about, it is like a clutter clearance operation. So just as we clear old files or old papers from our house, the brain clears off stuff that it realizes is not being used or doesn't need anymore. And that is important so that it can work optimally for what is actually required. So broadly, there are three stages to memory, the memory process. The first is encoding, when information is going from the outside world into our brains through the sensory organs, of course. And here you have visual encoding, auditory encoding, semantic encoding. So by semantic encoding, what I mean is encoding that has meaning or context associated with it. So for instance, when we are say teaching division to young children, dividing one number by another, we don't only teach them the step by step method, right? We tell them, or we teach them, what exactly is division, what does it mean, look at it in terms of grouping or sharing, applications, its connection to multiplication. We are giving a context and meaning around it, and that goes in as semantic encoding. And once the brain has encoded in the format that it requires, of course it has to be stored. And here broadly we have the short-term memory storage and the long-term memory storage. And these are, the words itself are self-explanatory. The short-term memory is for short durations of time, small amount of information, whereas the long-term memory is what is potentially indefinite. There are things we remember all our lives, and vast amounts of storage also. And here, let me first talk about retrieval. So the third stage, once we have stored the memory, of course, we have to be able to retrieve. And here in retrieval, from the long-term memory, a critical component is associations. The brain uses associations to be able to retrieve, and we will actually connect this to one of the pedagogies that we will be talking about in one of the later slides, which wraps up very well with the memory process here. So there are some memories that we remember for a long time, but there are some that we don't. Let's look at some factors that could affect memory. For this, I would like you all to just spend a minute on this recall exercise. Just try to recall any incident that comes to your mind from your own student years. It should be many years back, and anything that happened or you did, just recall it. And I have just one follow-up question after that. I'll just give you a minute to try and recall anything that is most vivid in your mind. Okay, let's look at the follow-up question. What is the emotion you most closely associate with the incident? If you all can just type in, Indra, I will request you to share what they are saying.
Yes. I'm just taking a look at the chat box. Okay. Gayatri ma'am says A. Then Rahul sir says E. Ruchi Anand says sadness. Then we have Madhvi Singh saying excitement.
Right.
But quite a few of them are saying happiness, sadness. Okay, Sylvia Okoro says no emotion.
Wonderful. So basically, there is a close relationship. One incident that I remember from my school days is both fear and relief. There was a incident that happened which instigated fear as well as relief at the end of it. So there is neuroscience is pointing to the close relationship between emotions and memory, and hence learning as well. They are closely linked. And this goes for both positive as well as negative emotions. And apparently, in emotionally charged situations, certain neurotransmitters are enhanced in the brain. Neurotransmitters are what is building those connections between the neurons. Apparently, some of them get enhanced in the brain, and that could be one of the reasons why emotions play such a strong role in memory and learning. And I think we as educators, we have seen that when children are scared of some subject, they are not able to learn it properly. But at the same time, when they are enjoying and engrossed, then it the learning becomes easier for them and stays with them longer. For instance, if a child is doing a science experiment and there is a hard discovery moment, the results of that experiment, because of that excitement of discovery, that will stay with the student longer. And likewise, I'm sure you have noticed in other subjects that are being taught as well. I can say for sure, even in mathematics, which is such a matter of fact subject, right? How can emotions come into it is what people would say. But you will notice that many mathematicians, when they're looking at some proof, when we are proving, say, some result, if they like the proof, they will remark, in the manner they will say, this proof is beautiful. They actually use the word beautiful. They see beauty in it. And when that kind of emotional connect is there, then the ideas behind the content also sticks longer, not just the technical details. So emotions play a very important role in strengthening memories and thereby strengthening learning. Okay, sleep. Sleep is important. But now many of you will be, looking at me and saying, so what's the big deal? We all know that sleep is important. I agree. Even I knew that, sleep is important. I know sleep is important. Otherwise, one cannot, concentrate, focus the next day and learn well. But the manner in which sleep is important and the extent to which sleep is important is something that was a real revelation to me. So this is what is happening. Here's what is happening. When we learn something, there is a subset of neurons that is getting fired, right? When we are sleeping, and we are doing nothing at that point, right? To actively, we are not doing anything. When we are sleeping, the same subset of neurons start firing again, almost like an action replay. And that activation, after some time, echoes in parts of the brain that are associated with long-term memory. And so they say that it is in sleep that the consolidation of memory and learning into long-term memory is happening. I mean, that was amazing when I learned, the fact. And if you think about it, when one is sleeping, the brain is not being bombarded with more, stimulus from outside, and therefore it's using that time to actually consolidate and put it into long-term memory. This is really amazing. So sleep is more important than at least what I thought. Research studies have also been done to understand the impact of sleep on problem solving, higher order cognitive thinking itself. And in one such study, what they did was they made the participants work on a video game. And this video game had many challenge levels. So at each challenge level, they have to solve something. And people got stuck at different levels, right? So one half of them were allowed to sleep or rest. The other half were not allowed to. And the researchers found that the group that when they came back to the challenge, to the video game, they found that the group that had rested was better able to solve and move forward in the game than the other group. So sleep is actually far more important than we would have actually thought. We know it is important, but it is even more important, I would say. So let's speak a little bit about zones of learning. For a long time, psychologists have spoken about the different zones of learning, and I'm sure you all are very familiar with, or intuitively at least definitely know about these three zones that I have put down here. But I also want to connect it with neuroplasticity. So comfort zone is where, of course, the student is very comfortable. There are no surprises. They know all the material. But because of that, there is no additional learning. And when there is not much additional learning, I would say, there's minimal learning and limited neuroplasticity also. But move out of the comfort zone into the growth zone, which is slightly above their current level. They have to work hard, they have to learn new things, they have to apply themselves. That is where we want the students to be, because that is where enhanced learning will happen, and also enhanced neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is also following the, it is so closely tied to stimulus and learning from the outside world. One thing we have to keep in mind always when students are in the growth zone is that there should be a safety net they feel. They should know that if they're making mistakes, there are people who will help them. They can go for help and support. In that kind of an environment, they will grow. So it is really their growth zone. And the last one is, of course, a no-no completely, because the stress zone is way above maybe their current level. Even with help, maybe they cannot achieve, or they don't have the help. So this triggers all the wrong signals for the brain, the fear, anxiety, worry, and this is not where we want the students to be at all. So these are the zones of learning, which also matches with the zone of neuroplasticity, I would say. So now let us look at some implications for teaching learning. Growth mindset. We want to definitely develop a growth mindset for the students. This is the I can attitude, I will not give up kind of attitude. And this is closely related to neuroplasticity. Why? Because abilities are not fixed. Abilities are not only inborn. As the student puts in more effort and has the right tools, the brain is also helping along the way, all along the way. So these statements that you see in these yellow boxes on this billboard, they relate to a fixed mindset. And whenever the students are thinking in that vein, we want to change their mind to the corresponding, growth mindset statement. So if they feel it scares me to fail, we should try to make them, think in terms of, I will learn from my failure. Of course, all of this requires perseverance, self-belief, and all these I have listed. But how do we actually inculcate it in the students, right? I mean, there has to be some practical way to do it. I would suggest that you talk to students about neuroplasticity, not the very young ones, of course, not the toddlers, but when they are slightly older and they can understand the concept of it, then talk to them about it so that they know that with effort, progress is possible, definitely. Positive feedback for effort rather than for ability or intelligence. I think this is very, very important. There was this study done by Dweck and Mueller many years ago when they were talking a lot about this growth mindset. What they did was, with a group of students, they gave them a challenge to solve. One half of those students were praised for their ability or intelligence after succeeding with that challenge. The other half was praised for the effort that they had put in. Even though they had also succeeded, the praise was different. Now what the researchers did was that they started giving more and more difficult challenge, or more and more difficult puzzles or problems. And they found that the group that was praised for the ability or intelligence, that group was less resilient, was not as open to trying more and more challenges, because in some way they had connected that praise or reward with only that final intelligence, ability of being able to solve the challenge. Whereas the other group, which was praised for their effort, was found to be more resilient, was willing to try more challenges and put in more effort also, which goes a longer way. So definitely praise for effort. Whenever you find that students are trying different ways, that is something that we must appreciate, call out, and make sure that they know it is praiseworthy. Examples of the attitude of try again of visibly successful people. Nothing is really achievable without hard work, and we all are going to face impediments on the way. There are a lot of quotes of successful people. One of my favorite quotes goes back to Albert Einstein again. And it is attributed to him. He's supposed to have said, it is not that I am smarter, it is just that I stay with problems longer. So he himself is, admitting that it's hard work and it's not something that is only an inborn, trait. And if these kind of quotes also may be very far removed for the students, if somebody in their own environment whom they can relate to, on a day-to-day level can come and talk to them, who has tried and succeeded in certain ways, who can talk to them about the how hard work can take them forward, that would also help. So arranging for such talks, I think, is a very good idea with the students to develop this growth mindset, which will definitely have an impact on their academics and other skills that they have to learn. Okay, what are the different ways in which deep learning can happen that uses the way the brain learns and assimilates, consolidates? Retrieval, elaboration, spacing, interleaving, effortful practice. And by effortful practice, what I mean is practice that is deliberate, focused, and it is not easy. It makes the brain work harder. So according to neuroscientists, the harder we make the brain work, the more energy we make the brain spend in learning something, that's when those neuronal connections also become stronger. So any of this, easy reading, just reading again and again when they're revising or revisiting, reading again from the book where the knowledge is again going from outside to inside, is not making the brain work harder. That is easy access to information. You will find that students, when they are reading a chapter, they will highlight certain important examples or definitions, which they can reread later. People think it's a good way of revising. Apparently not, because that does not make the brain work harder. It's very easily accessible. So some of the other practices will make the brain work harder. Let's talk about retrieval. So retrieval, we spoke about it in the third stage of the memory process, where information that is stored is actually brought back into our awareness. And when that is being done, the brain works harder because it has to retrieve it back. It's not just easily available. So there are different ways. I have listed some of them, some here, which exercise active recall. Low stakes quizzes. By low stakes, I mean quizzes that do not count for the student's grade and the marks or the rank. And so you can have many of these across the year. When you have taught 1 or 2 chapters, have a quick quiz. This will exercise retrieval. And that safety net that we spoke about in the growth zone, that is there, because even if they make mistakes, it doesn't count for their grade, so they can learn from that mistake. So that safety net is there for the students. Self-correcting mistakes. So since these quizzes are being done when they have just freshly learned some material, mistakes are bound to happen. And instead of telling them what the answer is or showing them where it is in the book, giving them hints or cues, nudging them in certain direction, so that again they use those hints to try and recall another step in the active recall process. They try to do that and self-correct the mistakes. Peer teaching learning. According to me, peer teaching learning is very important. I know all of you have a lot of course to cover and tight schedules, but whenever possible, you can put them in twos or small groups of 3. Because I am a firm believer that one learns a lot when we teach. So this whole process of being able to express and articulate what the domain knowledge to somebody else, that is very, very important in consolidation. So have students, when they are working in pairs, have them explain what they have learned, the concept or that the chapter or whatever knowledge they have learned, have them explain it to each other. That makes them articulate it, and that kind of clarifies for them also in their own mind. And the student who is listening can be encouraged to ask questions. So in asking questions also, there is an active engagement of the brain, because the student is assessing what he or she does not understand and pulling out from the brain to ask. So the direction of, in retrieval, the direction of the knowledge or information is from inside to outside. So that is making the brain work better, harder. Reflections, you will find, when you're reading some technical books, at the end of a chapter, they will say, without going back into the chapter, list 2 or 3, salient points that you remember. So that makes the student actually go back in the mind, recapitulate what has been read, and then pull out from that the important elements. And you can also say, without going back to the chapter, write down 2 or 3 questions that come to your mind. That also would make them, actively try and recall and recapitulate what has been taught. So these are just some. I have listed a few of them here. I'm sure you all are also trying many different ways. The important thing is that we exercise retrieval as much as possible, and not easy rereading and easy access of knowledge. So where retrieval is concerned, there was this very interesting study that was done. The reason I'm bringing up some of these studies is because, one, they're interesting, and the other is that it corroborates what we are, talking about. So in this study, what they did was they gave the participants many pairs of words, and these pairs of words were put into different groups, with each group following a certain rule. So, for instance, you see right on top, the rule is synonym. Then the 2 words I have listed here are synonyms of each other. They have the same meaning. Supposing the rule is category, then the 2 words are, what I have put down here is lungs and heart, because they belong to the same category. They are both organs of the body. So there was a rule associated with each of the groups, and 2 words always given. In some of these pairs of words, both the words were given, okay, the way you see it in the top 4 rows. But in some of them, the rule was there, the first word was there, and the participants had to generate or do a fill in the blank, generate the second word. So in this case, in this last row, since it's opposite, they would generate slow, because it's the opposite of of fast, sorry. So what they found, actually, I tried something similar on myself also. Let's just take a minute to give you all an experiential, feel of this study itself. I'll give you a few pairs of words. Where both are given, just read it. Where you have to generate it, you can just write it down in your notes, or even type it in the chat box. We can just spend a minute doing that, because it's nice. I tried it on myself also. Yeah. Indira, if they type anything, please share it with me.
Yes. So in the previous slide,
so there
opposite.
are 4 rules here.
Yes. Now we have started getting responses.
Please read
also.
the ones that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
If they are
Varsha,
typing into the chat
Asha,
box,
all of them say right for correct. The synonym.
right. That's right.
And some people also say slow as the opposite for fast. Then, oh yes,
that is
Honeymoon Thakur
that
says
is in the
simple.
example.
Yeah,
That is in the
Hanina
example,
Thakur
but
says
I'm
simple
not.
for easy.
That's right. That's right.
And wrong. Okay, I'm not quite sure which one. Yeah, this simple and exit.
Exit.
Opposite
Correct.
of
That's the opposite of enter.
enter. Correct. Then we have simple and easy. Then there is
Right.
Jyoti Kiran saying music and dance.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. So
Very
yeah, you all
nice,
have got.
lovely.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So I just wanted you all to get an experiential feel for what was done there. So what they found in this study was that the participants, after some time, were asked to recall the words that was presented to them, and they found that the participants were better able to recall the ones that they had generated, the fill in the blank ones. They were able to recall those ones rather than the ones where both the words were given. And actually in the study, the participants were made to actually read out the words, even if they were given, even if both of them were given. And they found that when they had generated the words, those are the words that they were better able to recall. So again, substantiating that retrieval helps memory consolidation. Um, let's speak about interleaving and spacing. Spacing is the technique where you give increased intervals of time, space in terms of time, when revision or reinforcement is being done. And here, the Leitner system is something I wanted to quickly give you all a gist about. The essence of the Leitner system is the following. You will see these 4 boxes I have here: daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. There's nothing sacrosanct about these time intervals. You could have different time intervals as long as they're increasing in time span. So the Leibniz system says that if there is any concept that the student has to say master, in the beginning put that, write it on a sheet of paper and then put it in the daily basket, in the daily box. They will practice it daily, exercising retrieval, of course. So there will be questions and problems they will have to do with it. Once they are a little comfortable with it, move it to the weekly box. So they will not visit that concept for a whole week, but after a week they will revisit it. If they succeed in being able to answer the questions on it, it moves to the monthly box. But if they forget or they're not able to solve something, it moves back into the daily box. So this is the way spaced intervals of time are used. And the reason it works is that when you give extended intervals of time, the brain has the opportunity to put that concept on the side burner or maybe even the back burner, and it works that much harder when you have to revisit it again. So it builds the stronger deepening of the learning. Again, making the brain work harder, right? When after a week you revisit it or after a month. In interleaved practice, supposing the students have to, master 2 or 3 skills, instead of practicing just one skill for many days and then skill 2 after that and skill 3, interleaving them is a better practice. For instance, say in sports, the student has to, is playing basketball, say, and they have to learn how to throw the ball into the basket. That is one skill. They have to learn, they have to be good at dribbling the ball. That is another skill. They have to be able to pass to their team members. That's a third skill. Instead of just practicing one of those skills for a whole week and then moving to the next, in the same practice session of the day, interleaving it is what is suggested. And this is just an example. Can extrapolate it to different situations or different domains. So interleaving is also recommended a lot. Okay, elaboration is the technique where we are adding more details, more context, more associations. Basically, I would say that is the real word. Adding more associations around a particular piece of concept or anything that we have to teach. And what are the different ways of doing that? We will also talk about how it is important in terms of the brain working. But elaboration, when we want to give many different associations to what is being taught, you can add details by making the students ask elaborative questions. Why is this important? How is this concept important? Where is it applied? Comparing and contrasting with other concepts. So for instance, if they're learning about volcanoes, compare and contrast with earthquakes or landslides. If they're learning about photosynthesis, where plants take in carbon dioxide, use carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, how does that compare and contrast with our own, respiration? So those kind of detailing, around the concept. Analogies are very strong pedagogy by themselves, but in this context of elaboration, when any concept is connected to some other entity which is familiar to the student and has some similarity with this new concept, that always helps the student to learn better. Again, as an example, if the students are learning about the immune system, we can say the immune system is like the defense forces of the country, say. So the students will know defense forces protect the country. Likewise, the immune system helps to protect the body. Illustrations and visualizations. This again is very important way of adding more detail, more associations to the concept in actually a different dimension. So this is the visual dimension. So maps, diagrams, bar graphs, pie charts. Those, if the students are looking at only data, it's very difficult to figure out what is the story behind the data. But the minute you put it into these visualizations, it becomes, the story starts emerging, and this gives a link to the textual content. So visualizations wherever possible. And some students like to doodle. If they can connect what they're learning with something they're doodling, please allow them to do that, because that there are associations they make when they do that. Real life connects, this whole area of authentic learning, right? If the teaching can be connected with their actual immediate living environment and real life, that gives again an association for them to help in the learning of that particular concept. So there are many ways to add associations. Why is this important, and why is this why is this useful for the brain? So you will see this central, supposing there is this central concept here, right? In dark orange. If we make many associations to it in different ways, you will see all these other links that are connected to it. Now, what the brain will do is that it could use any of these links as hints or cues to be able to retrieve this central, concept or central piece of knowledge. And so there are multiple retrieval paths for it, and that is very strong. And actually, I'll give you a very mundane, everyday kind of example. There was this lady whose name I kept forgetting. And once when I remembered it, I realized her name was very similar to my aunt, my mother's sister's name. So I just made that association, and then I forgot about it. Now, when I need to remember that lady's name, I am remembering my aunt's name because that is familiar to me, right? I'm not going to forget that. I am remembering that. And from there, I'm picking up this. I see that ladies, I can actually see this happening. And when I, notice these things, it is really exciting and amazing. So giving these many different associations helps helps the brain to consolidate, retrieve, etc. Okay, leveraging emotions. We know that emotions are important. I want you all to share with me what methodologies you have used or can use to make learning enjoyable for the students. Any one word, two word kind of, methodologies that you have used. If you can just type it into the chat box, that will be so nice.
Yes, I'm just looking at the chat box.
Are they typing anything, Indra?
There are still people answering to your previous puzzle. See, the audience loved your puzzle so much.
Sorry?
Okay. The audience loved your puzzle so much. There are still people typing answers about that puzzle.
Oh, they can, I tried it on myself. I mean, not obviously not the same one, because I created that, but a similar one. I tried it on myself. That's why I wanted to, let them have an experience
Yeah,
with
now
it.
we are having answers. So some people are saying games, gamifications, quizzes, formulas are
Correct.
rewritten in the form of songs. And Ruchi
Ah,
Anand says,
wonderful,
I've used
wonderful,
doodling for average learners. Then
wonderful,
placards, using placards.
right?
Oh, then Jyoti Kaushik shares that we take peer feedback after collaborative engagements. That's wonderful.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful,
Then inquiry
wonderful.
based
Because
learning is another methodology.
wonderful, and taking peer feedback directly relates to this, the sense of belonging that I wanted to talk about. I mean, all the others are very self-explanatory, and I think all of you, I mean, when you are talking about the different methods, you're including all of these. But the sense of belonging, when you take feedback from the students, they have they start building that sense of belonging in the classroom with the school, because they feel valued, they feel that they have agency now because their voice also counts. So this sense of
Right.
belong, it directly actually feeds into sense of belonging. And I was going to actually talk about one or two other points around sense of belonging, but I'm so glad you shared it with me, because that really actually feeds into sense of belonging. If you actually see any of the children receding in the classroom, please make an effort to find out what might be the reason, talk to their parents. These are all lateral ways in which we can leverage emotions. It's not directly to do with the teaching that we are doing, but they're all lateral ways in which we help build the ability for the children to learn better. So if any of the students are receding, please talk to the parents, talk to the students, and of course, as we've already discussed, bring their opinions into it, into the classroom. What would they like to do in the classroom, for the school, in different situations, wherever possible, for the school day or anything else. I think all these other experiential learning, active engagement, I'm sure all of you are exercising it already. Songs, one of you said songs you all are using. That's art integration, basically. So really, really wonderful to get that feedback from all of you. So finally, we will be talking about sleep. We've already seen how important sleep is. It is not just giving rest to the body. The brain is actually very, very active during sleep in terms of learning itself, doing a lot of heavy lifting at that time, because consolidation into long-term memory is what we want for deep learning. So sleep students should not compromise on. There are periods of focus and attention that is very important, and during that period of focus, multitasking is not recommended at all. Why? Because multitasking has a cognitive overload on the brain. So if the student is, while they are learning something, they quickly look at the phone or even look at a 20-second video that has come in and then come back, that cognitive overload is suboptimal for the brain. So they should concentrate and learn that for that period, whatever that period may be, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it is, learn the content, and then they can turn to something else. But it is very important that night rest is always prioritized. It should always be there, and these short naps of 10 15 minutes of power naps, those are also recommended. But of course, that we can't do in school, right? So what can we do in school? After they finish studying, say for 30-40 minutes, let them sit just quietly with their eyes closed for 3-4 minutes, not do anything. And younger children, it's not possible, I know, but at a certain proper age, this will give the brain that resting time to just consolidate in some whatever way it wants to, and then move to the next period of focus and attention. So focus, attention, followed by rest, sleep, that is very important. And please make sure that students get their night's sleep. In fact, now after I learned about all this, I don't feel guilty at all if I oversleep. I feel very happy if I've overslept also, because it is helping my brain. So I think with that, I will stop. And over to you, uh, Indira.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, here is one question by Vimi Menon. She asks, what
Sure.
are some ways to promote social emotional learning and self regulation among kindergarten students? And how can I incorporate these skills into my daily lesson plans?
Okay, social emotional learning. See, kindergarten kids, they are very, very young, right? So, and children are in that age. They are social. They have to that safety has to be. The safety is very important. What we talked about, the safety net. Of course, that's in the growth zone, but even in the emotions, where we spoke about emotions, that children feeling that they are safe in that environment, that is very important. I would say at that age, at that very, very young age, feeling safe, and therefore engaging with them, not just with the academic content or what you're teaching, but in other ways also. Make them talk about their life, make them talk about what they did at home, and talk to each other. So all these pedagogies that we talked about when we spoke about emotions, active collaborating, make the students do art, I will say again, is very, very important to bring out expressions in the child. See, a child at that age doesn't really have too much language as a tool for them yet. I mean, language has to still develop for them, but being able to draw something, doodle something, sing, those are expressions, and being able to express is very important for social emotional learning. And there is a whole area of social emotional learning where they will stress on art as being very, very important. So you can incorporate all of these, make the students work with each other, art integration, build that safety feeling for the students. So doing all of that, and then to notice progress, you will have to study the child in the beginning, right? Whichever children you want to see whether there's progress, you will have to, at the beginning of the year, watch them and see whether they are feeling comfortable, whether they are expressing themselves, and is that improving over time. So that is what you will have to, so any of those pedagogies we spoke about in incorporating emotions, I would say a lot of them will apply, but it has to be tailored for a very, very young child. That is the only
Right, right, right. Okay, okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that very insightful session. It was really nice and it was quite engaging, especially the polls and the question answers and your puzzles. Those were quite engaging and informative
yeah.
for all our community of teachers. And yes, I can see from the comments that they have a lot of takeaway which they can implement in their own classrooms back in their schools. So
I'm also
now,
hoping that this I'm also hoping that this kind of sparks a curiosity in them, and they will also want to learn more about this,
learn more.
how the brain
Right,
learns exactly. Yeah.
right, right. Very true, ma'am. Okay, so thank you so much. Now, coming back to the audience, quick note on how to fill the feedback form and check your participation. Now, I'm going through the steps one by one, very slowly. Please look at that. If you have already registered and if you have filled out the feedback form for the session, then check your participation record. Okay, how will you check it? You have to check it in CENTA app under the My Learning section, which comes at the bottom in the form of in the ribbon, like next to home, learning, community, and then comes in learning. So under learning, go to my learning section. So here are the instructions. The first step, open your CENTA app on the device. If all of you have access to your mobile, please open the CENTA app on your device along with me as I keep briefing on the instructions. Once the CENTA app is opened, second step, navigate to ongoing webinar section. Ongoing webinar section. Okay. Please go to the ongoing webinar section. Third step, you can see a section over there in the page that pops up in the ongoing webinar. You can see a small blue colored tab at the base on the right hand side with submit feedback written on it. The right hand side at the bottom, as you can see here on the screen, you can see a submit feedback tab. Please click on submit feedback and then please fill the feedback form. Okay. Now, when you're filling the feedback form, there is a access code. The access code for this particular webinar is 2367. I repeat, the access code for this particular webinar is 2367. Once you punch in the access code, you'll get the feedback form. Please fill the feedback form. After that, you can download your record of participation then and there. There is no waiting process. Okay. This new process was introduced so as to streamline your experience and also to ensure the participation is recognized instantly. Okay. All right, then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, audience. And let's call it a day. See you all in the next week.